Hello and welcome back to another edition of GNAT-TV's In-Depth series. I'm Andrew McKeever, the news director at GNAT-TV's News Project, and it's a pleasure to have you with us today on Thursday, January 28th. It's also a great pleasure to be joined today by Lauren Walker, who is the President of Bennington College. She was appointed to that post last August, and she follows in the footsteps of Mariko Silver, who stepped down in July of 2019, and interim president Dr. Isabel Roach, who served in the past year up until August of 2020. Ms. Walker, welcome to the News Project.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Thank you for making the time for this conversation. I've been looking forward to this discussion for a while. I guess just to kind of get us started, tell us a little bit about what attracted you to the opportunity to come to Bennington College and serve as president. When you were first approached, did you think, wow, this sounds like this would be a great job?
You know, when I was first approached, I said, wow, run a college? But then, as I continued to explore this, I basically fell in love with Bennington. I really got a sense of a community that was really vibrant and special, and that it was and is this incredible place where it not only does learning happen in a way a fundamentally different way than at other colleges, but it is also a place that I think can have an even greater impact on the world. And it's very special approach of bringing teachers, faculty members who are dedicated to teaching and who are also practitioners. They're artists and they're musicians and they're chemists, and they're doing their own work, and they are totally devoted to that bond with the students, and who are self-directed in their learning and exploring with their burning passions, both of them. And that creates for a really lively kind of environment. I also came to understand that while I had spent, many years in public radio, running public radio, I also had spent a fair amount of time in education on the board of St. Anne's School in New York, and I was at Yale at the time when they gave me a call as a fellow there. I realized that over time, I kept asking myself, can I do what this college needs? If I'm going to lead this college, can I bring the kind of skills and the energy and the vision that I believe Bennington deserves? And I came to understand that what Bennington needs right now is someone who appreciates it and loves it, and also can help it grow and survive and thrive, really thrive in this world, and think about how it can reach new audiences or new students, how it can expand who we reach, how it can look at delivering its special kind of sauce, if you will, its brand of, or its approach to education in some new ways, and also to have a greater impact. So I have come with a great deal of fundraising background, strategy background, of looking at new ways of reaching, in the case of public radio audiences. And I'm so thrilled to be here and to be able to think about how to take what is so special about Bennington and have it, thrive in this world.
What's it been like this year running the college during the COVID pandemic? I'm sure you, like every other school and institution, has had to make some adjustments and changes to what would be the normal way of doing things.
It's, well, in some ways, because I didn't know normal, I came in August, as you said, and there had been this amazing group of staff and faculty and others that had been planning for COVID and had gone through the spring where, like that, they had to all of a sudden switch to online learning. So in planning for the fall, we've obviously had to kind of really rethink how the curriculum is delivered, what student life is like. I've been incredibly thrilled to see how many students are back on campus. We have about 80% of our students who are back on campus, and they are so excited to be here. I remember on the opening day, I was manning the welcome booth, and I remember this. I think he was a junior being dropped off by his parents, and he basically said goodbye, and he said, "I love you guys, but I can't wait to get away from, my bedroom where I was, spending the last several months, and to be here at Bennington." And and I think that's how the students feel. They feel so privileged to be here, and also they're incredibly dedicated to figuring out ways that they can keep the college healthy and keep the community healthy, and to respect everyone's health. I think we had every student. We created a commitment of shared responsibility to ensure we were all starting off on the same page about safety, responsibility, and accountability. It was a process of creating this. We listened to public health experts to develop a protocol, and equally, we listened to students and to faculty about what they were concerned about and what it would be like to create a compact of social responsibility that was not just about mask wearing and social distancing, but was also about how classes were going to be run, and who was going to be allowed on campus and not. And so we developed that together as a community, and I've been so pleased at how people have adhered to that. Everyone has to sign it, and everyone takes it very seriously. We had 4 cases of students who had COVID on arrival. We quarantined them, and we have had no other cases of students contracting COVID. We have, since Thanksgiving, like the rest of the community, had some residents and employees and staff. I think it's about 7 who have COVID, and I think all but 1 have now recovered. The remaining 1 is recovering, but is also remote, and has not been on campus. So that's an incredible track record, I think, partially due to the fact that we're here in Vermont, and where it has been incredibly COVID-free in ways, but also due to the commitment that our community has. The COVID crisis also allowed me to get to know the community of Bennington and North Bennington in ways that are not anywhere near as deep in a way as I would have had, because I would have been going out and having dinners and lunches and meetings with all sorts of people in the community. But I think it was my 4th or 5th day, I went to a North Bennington Board of Selectmen meeting, and really worked with the community to make sure that we were all together being safe, and then also talked with the Bennington Select Board. And it's been a really wonderful relationship to see how Bennington, North Bennington, Vermont, how committed people are to their community and to working together. So that has been a really powerful experience in many ways. I also found that COVID, entering in at a moment of crisis, was in some ways a really interesting time to get to know the community of Bennington College. So I have met with almost every faculty member one-on-one. At the beginning, it was outside. in the beautiful fall of Bennington, and had the opportunity to meet artists and musicians and writers and this incredible faculty. And there was no exception to the fact that they are so dedicated to their teaching and to the students and to creating really strong bonds with students that help them figure out what they want to do. So that's been amazing. It's been a little hard to read the room, if you will. I've met with, done faculty meetings and all sorts of, other meetings with staff, et cetera. But it's sometimes I when I go on campus, because I've been on campus too, I'll see somebody that I've seen only on Zoom. I'm like, oh, you're like a TV star, and just want to go over and say, hey, I didn't quite know how tall you were. It's a funny way to do this. And I think it's also been a really interesting time to see the tensions and the strength both of higher education. I'm very impressed with how the Vermont schools are all banding together to work together to share plans. It's an incredibly collaborative group. We meet every week, and we met every week until December, now meeting every other week to share kind of like, how are we all opening? What are we finding about compliance? How can we both get and thank our local officials for the amazing support that they're giving, and work together to try to get some more federal support and other kinds of things. It's an amazing group, but it's also a group that, is struggling in many ways with the same issues that higher education is struggling with in terms of, even though we have so many students on campus, we're not getting the room and board for 20%. We have additional costs for testing and for, other kind of supplies and things. And so it's been a tough road in terms of just, looking at how much we've been affected, but we've been able to, get some funds, both government funds and some philanthropic funds to help us through this period. And I'm very, very encouraged and positive about the future of Bennington and the future success of the school as we think together, which we will be doing more and more in the next several months, about what a Bennington education means in the 21st century. And that is a really exciting prospect. And I know that we have such a strong foundation to build on, that we will be looking at ways to reach new students. We will be looking at ways to think about how we can become a school that is embracing and welcoming to all, and that is committed to diversity, to equity, inclusion, and looks at ways that we can have the kind of conversations as a community that we all need to have about how we dismantle systemic racism, and how we, as an educational society and organization, educate ourselves and others and create change makers in the world. And then also how we take the curriculum. It's been interesting to look at how some classes just are as good and sometimes a little better online, in the sense of kind of there are other opportunities, and some that, you realize can flourish, in different ways, obviously, when you're on campus. But I've been so impressed with, who knew you could teach sculpture, remotely, and the faculty has been amazing.
Yeah, a year and a half ago, that would have seemed really out of the box. I just wanted to kind of shift a little bit here and just ask you to talk a little bit about your background before you came to Bennington College. It's a little bit different, I would imagine, from the typical profile. You spent 23 years at WNYC, which is a public radio station in New York City. and grew that enormously over that period of time. I guess tell us a little bit about that. What was that like? You brought into the mix several very well-known programs like Radio Lab and On the Media. What is your sense of public radio and kind of its future?
Well, first of all, I have to say I am now a very, very loyal and passionate listener to Vermont Public Radio. I think Scott Finn and those guys are the team up there are doing amazing work. And when I say that, I think that I mean that they are taking advantage of the incredible power that public radio has in this country. There are very few places in this country that are not served by a public radio station. And the promise of public radio right now, I think, is in the combination of strong local roots, local journalism, as well as a national presence and a national both news presence and sense of community. So as an example, Morning Edition, from its very inception, was created as a program that was going to have national, obviously was nationally created out of NPR, and I worked there for a while, so I know the kind of excellence and the journalism at NPR. But it also was created for stations to put in their own, not just newscasts, but strong feature programming and documentary programming and news about their communities. And I think it's rare. Public radio, that's a really rare thing. There's really nothing else in this country that does that in a very strong way of having, certainly live national and live local. And I believe very strongly that the future of public radio is both in strengthening local journalism at a time when, as you well know, that papers and other places are laying off local journalists. I think, there have been, so much reduction of, local journalism, photography, everything in the print world. And at the same time, there's been an increase in public radio in the local journalism world. I also think, and this is something we did at New York Public Radio, the opportunity to really create new programming. I mean, I really had a vision of creating podcasting long before it was popular. Back in 2013, somebody came into my office and said, there's this thing called podcasting. What if we On the Media do a podcast, because we're about the media? And I'm like, what is a podcast? And, and who's on it? I think there were like 100 or 200, programs on this. And so I'm like, why not? And in a way, that was what I love to do at New York Public Radio. It's have great people around me and say, why not? And then it was something that kind of was, I would say, not an afterthought, but a little extension for a long time. And then we realized that there was not only a different audience there was a way that our creative staff was using podcasting in different creative ways. So, for example, in Radio Lab was, when it first began, 5 one-hour programs. Every 6 months, there would be 5 one-hour programs, which we would play over the course on the radio, Monday through Friday, for 1 hour each day. And there was, I think, a meeting where we looked at kind of some podcasting statistics. And it was said, like, people really listen for 20 minutes. They don't really listen, to a podcast for that much longer. And Jad Abumrad and the crew said, well, maybe we should just produce 20-minute segments. And out of that came up what we called a podcast first strategy. So they just started doing 20 minutes, and then we decided, hey, that's a really creative medium. Let's just start everything as a podcast and then see if it goes into radio. So that's actually what we did with Freakonomics, with Death, Sex, and Money, with all sorts of shows. We just did podcast first, and then we found the audience was growing and growing and growing, and we could figure out a way to monetize it, and that's what we did. And when I left, I think there were 24 million downloads on the every week. I mean, that's amazing. I do think that public radio has an opportunity now to do more at the forefront, to actually think about what's next and to leapfrog. That's what we did back then. I think leapfrogging into a different kind of interactivity, leapfrogging into having national conversations. I remember we did in the 2016 election, we put together a evening show. It was right after the 2016 elections, an evening show to look throughout this country, to have people discuss, well, what just happened, and how do we come together, and what does this mean for our country? And it was a range of stations with a national conversation.
What do you think about the interface between public radio, traditional newspapers, community access television, and social media is? I've been following very closely this whole discussion about Twitter basically kicking off former President Trump off of their service, and Facebook also indefinitely suspending an account, and trying to follow the back and forth between is that the right thing to do, or was it the right thing to do? And to what extent does that imply freedom of speech and a sense of fairness? I guess, where do you see the boundary lines, for lack of a better term, between social media platforms like that and the more traditional sources of information? I mean, there's been so much discussion about "quote unquote" fake news and all of that. Do you think that traditional media is going to be able to compete with social media platforms like Twitter and Facebook and some of the others that I'm just beginning to find out about? Or what's your sense of the future?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, and I have a lot of faith in the American people, who I want many of them to know the truth and the facts, and I'll say something maybe a little, controversial, but back in the day, the public airwaves were regulated and still are regulated, but there were there was the Fairness Act. There were rules that basically said you had to tell the truth, and you had to show different sides. You had to have public affairs programming. That has disappeared, and I think with both the disappearance of that and the proliferation of lots of different distribution and social media, we've lost our moral compass, our ethical compass in a way. I think something needs to happen, because it's not like the internet isn't public airwaves. In a way, it is. And why don't we come together and think about how to make sure that that the American people are getting the truth, and that are getting facts and also journalism about their own communities, as well as journalism about the national scene. To your point about to your point about the partnerships between different media, I think that can be incredibly powerful. I think it can be powerful on the local level. I think it can be powerful on the national level. I think So, for example, when I was at New York Public Radio, Gothamist, and which was a New York-based news or kind of just digital only organization that had local journalism kind of spin-offs in Chicago and San Francisco and DC and LA, it went under. And we decided that we would buy it. Why? Because we wanted to create a local digital platform, and that one already existed, and it had a good audience, and it had a great staff. So we purchased the whole thing, and then we sold or made arrangements with our fellow stations. LA has something called the LAist, which KPPC has, which has become a really, really important news source, and an interesting kind of interplay between radio and digital. And same at WAMU, they have DCist, and Chicago didn't do it. A Chance the Rapper bought it instead. In Chicago, the station there didn't do it. But I think that there's both really interesting content possibilities when you kind of work when you work across media and form partnerships with local and national print journalism. We did a lot of that too, and it can be really powerful. Or when we did ProPublica, we did a podcast called Trump Inc., and that was done with ProPublica, completely. It was a total joint venture. We started a collaboration with the New Yorker magazine and did the New Yorker radio hour, so we helped bring that to audio. I think that kind of collaboration, and then we did things with public television and other places where they took some of our content and put it into their distribution. I think that is going to be a very powerful way in the future. Institutions have to get out of their own way and, really, I think, let the creative folks create those partnerships that are around the content, and then the management has to say, why not?
Well, I'm thinking that you would have start your own podcast out of Bennington College then, maybe.
We're looking at it, but we're also looking to collaborate with both Vermont Public Radio, because what they have done is they're going to merge the TV and the radio. So, and I think Scott has a vision of creating stories. It's story, narrative journalism first, and then figuring out what medium it goes in. And so we're thinking about what we can do to help them increase their coverage of Southern Vermont, and also, frankly, to help build diversity. We have a very diverse student body. It's about 18% international students, many international students of color, and about 18% domestic students of color. And that is, for Vermont in particular, that's a very diverse group of students. So how do we help institutions like Vermont Public Radio and other people build diversity within their own staff? How do we, for all of our students, help them stay in Vermont? We all want young people in Vermont, and we have an incredible group that has graduated every year. And, it is so fabulous to talk with those that have stayed in Vermont, because putting their roots down here when they've loved it for college. But I think Scott's onto something. And yes, we are looking at podcasts. And we're also working with WAMC on a series of both conversations that at the college, or but with the college, that will be aired there.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing all those ideas come to fruition. It certainly sounds really exciting, and my goodness, there's certainly a lot we could talk about with all of those ideas. But I guess we're going to have to leave it there for now, unfortunately. But we'll look forward to an opportunity to have you back on our news project show and have you take us to the next level on all of that.
Absolutely, and maybe we can collaborate in ways that we can just say, why not to?
Why not? Exactly. Well, thank you again, Ms. Walker, for your time. I really appreciate it. And good luck going forward. It's been an exciting year already for you as the president of Bennington College, and I'm sure the next few will be even more so.
Yes, thank you so much. Really
thank you.
appreciate it.